Okay, I've started and stopped this video like 50 times because the dog keeps barking and I can't seem to get my words out, so I'm gonna do my best. But I really wanted to inject some hope into the world today and into the Irish people today. And yesterday I talked about historical trauma and how that influences the way people behave all the way down to an epigenetic level. And the other aspect that I talked about in relation to that, that is kind of the flip side of that, is human flourishing. And what are those markers? And there's four markers in particular that mark human flourishing. So one is happiness, which includes uh, goodness, happiness, satisfaction, superior functioning. The other is generativity, which is that broadening of the thought to action, as well as behavioral flexibility. The third one is growth. So, is there a possibility for social or personal resources and to have gains and grow? And then the last one is resilience. And so, what is the survival and growth in the aftermath of adversity? So, just looking at my notes there. But the one I really want to talk about today is the generativity, which is that thought to action and behavioral flexibility. And this one I want to talk about because it's trainable. It's trainable. So you see a lot of people, and I see it in the US too, and I have felt this myself. Okay. Like I have felt this myself where I'm afraid to speak up and I'm afraid to speak out because I don't want to be seen a certain way, right? Because I just want to be able to get along. And because your opinion is different than mine, that doesn't bother me, but it bothers me that it might bother you, right? And so there's a certain level of unwillingness to experience some discomfort or unrest there. And that's something that, I've had to grapple with myself. And I feel like that's why it's important to speak on this too, because I can't be alone in this, right? And when I hear in Ireland, one of the issues, right, is that people don't want to be. Look at what happens when someone speaks out, right? When you look at Enoch Burke, for example, and their family, when they speak out, even when you see Conor McGregor speak out, right? Like there are people that just want to annihilate them with their words. And some of that comes from, okay, maybe they have a strong conviction on that side against them, but then maybe they're also more easily programmed. I mean, it's just something to think about, right? Uh, into the indoctrination of just get along, just get along. What you see isn't real, right? But the thing is that there is a reality of what you're seeing. And you're being told that what you're seeing isn't the truth. But the truth is, people can feel what is true and what is not true. That is a resonance that feels. And so that leads into that behavioral flexibility, right? And that flexibility is if you can get more people moving that energy of thought to action. What is that in between piece? Is the movement of the thought coming out into words. And that movement of thought to action, of the thoughts and the beliefs, that resonance that you know is true, coming out as words, That's the first stage of that. And that's why I'm saying this is trainable, because you can get into the habit of bringing your thoughts to action. When you do that, you start to flex the muscle of behavioral flexibility, which is being able to hear one side or another and finding the reason in the middle and finding some sort of middle ground between the two of you. And this is what our people, our ancestors, were masters at. They were masters of this. Behavioral flexibility and thought to action, that thought to action through words, was one of their biggest superpowers. So when you look at historically, Brehon Law, right? How did that even work? Brehon Law is very much in line with any sort of tribal law I've ever seen, right? And what is the difference between tribal law and this imperialistic law that we all experience now that came from Rome, right? Is that Brehon Law and tribal laws depend on what feels true and what feels right and what resonates throughout the people as feeling right and just. So putting that thought to action and really working through that fear of being able to speak what you're thinking is what trains that behavioral flexibility and trains that ability to be able to see reason and justice and speak on it and act on it without fear. And if you get a collective of people that can reason with each other, that have flexibility with each other, that are able to speak to each other, even if it is, as my grandmother would say, the Irish way, right? That's where change happens. Change happens there. So I hope this gives you a little something to think about. And I'm just going to keep it a little short and sweet today. I know that there is a feeling of loss and fear and sadness and helplessness. I know that is around. But there's still hope. It's not all lost. And this movement of energy is what's going to make sure that it doesn't get lost and that there is more hope. Because the more people that hear it, the more people that they hear resonate with them, yeah, that's power. So let me know your thoughts. I love to hear them. I just love having the conversation, or at least being able to open the conversation. You know, this is the only reason why I did it, for that same reason, right? So with that, like and follow for more. I'll see you next time.